Okay. Uh, so hi, welcome everyone. Am I audible? Prosperity, is it okay?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, because every time it becomes like so much of noise, so much of noise. So welcome everyone to another day, another webinar from our innermost shift coaches. So we have Kishore with us today. Kishore has over 22 years of leadership experience in senior positions. He's worked in companies like Tata AIG, HDFC, and Genpact. He's also an ICF ACP certified coach, and also he's worked with leaders from various companies like KPMG, Times Group, JSW Steel, and obviously many others. And also he's transformed some family-run businesses into professionally run organizations. That's about his qualification, as I understand it from the whatever he has done it. But as a human being, I think an amazing person, wonderful, who works from the heart, and I think and is very open. That's what something I like about him. Even I remember when he came for the workshop, even learning and knowing so much, he was so open and curious to learn. I think that's so commendable as a coach and very commendable as an innermost shift coach. So welcome, Kishore. Uh, Thank you for coming in. So you're not audible, Kishore. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Am
Okay,
I
good.
audible now?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we'll
Okay.
follow the same protocol. You will have 30 minutes for your presentation. All the people, if you have any questions, please put it on the chat. And once we get over with the presentation, Prosperity will pick up the questions and we will be able to answer them. Kishore will take care of the questions and the answers, right, Kishore? So all for you. Go ahead. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Siri. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And I'm so excited. It's a blessing, actually. I'm very fortunate to be able to present this to you. It's many years of hard work, and to be able to talk some success stories. Very fortunate. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you once again for being here. Now, I'm going to talk today about some very complex challenges we all face as leaders in the corporate world. And also, I will share some of my experiences of dealing with them as a leadership coach. Now, many people ask me, what is a leadership coach? The way I would like to define that is someone who helps a leader discover his or her own innate power, creativity, connectedness, uniqueness, resourcefulness, self expression as a leader, warmth, flexibility, openness to deal with challenges and situations in his or her unique and most powerful way, and yet creating win win for all. And this is what a leadership coach helps a leader develop. Now, while there are many challenges that leaders face, given the time constraint we have, here's a few I would like to touch upon today. I think the biggest one that we all deal with is how to deal with change. Now, change comes in many shapes and forms. It could be in terms of change of role that you may have just gotten settled into. You just figured out, okay, the key levers of what you got to change and how to excel in this particular role, and what to do and how to go about. And suddenly, you told about a role change. Now, I'm sure many of you faced a role change. How many of you faced a role change, by the way? Type yes in the chat box. Let's make it interactive a little bit. Let's see. Okay. So just type yes if you faced a role change, or you faced a boss change, your favorite boss goes away, or your favorite customer changes, and that poses such a huge challenge. Now, suddenly, there are, you have to prove yourself once again. I'm sure all of us have been, been through this. The other challenge we're going to talk about is developing yourself for the next level. How many of us want promotions? How many of us want growth, right? The biggest challenge then comes is, how do you develop yourself? How many of us have a clear idea, clear communication? And while you have that, you're working on A and B competency and you're working so hard at it, and then suddenly you realize that things have changed and your promotion is delayed and you don't like it. That leads to some bit of frustration, demotivation. Your boss also has to deal with a demotivated employee at work. He also struggles with, how do I get across to this person on what really he needs to work on? He still doesn't seem to get it. And here is again where I've seen coaches play a significantly important role in communicating that across, because sometimes the coaches are far more open to their coaches than their bosses. Dealing with uncertainty is another one. We all are going through one, and in those times you have to keep calm. You have to be able to show that confidence as a leader, because everybody is looking at you. While you may not know the answers yourself, you are a stand that yes, we will together somehow figure out. And that's another competency most of us want to have. Personal past is something, another big challenge. In most workplaces, I have seen that mostly it's taboo to talk about the personal life, whereas we all have one. And we bring that to work somehow. It could be some relationships that haven't worked for us, that leave us with some distaste, some hurt, etc. within us. A near or dear one passing away, which we haven't been able to deal with, leaves some void. And that has an impact when we come to the workplace. And obviously, our efficiency and effectiveness suffers as a result of that. Now, how do you deal with that? The last one that I'll touch is teamwork and camaraderie, which we are always expected to show as a leader, especially in a diverse skill set environment where we want others also to probably act or think in the same way as we do. And when that doesn't happen, we subconsciously seem to alienate them. And that then becomes a struggle. Now, how do we deal with that? That's also what we're going to talk about. Now, let's move to some case studies I've put together. Here's the first one. He was a very senior guy, moved or grown within the ranks in a cement major. He joined 25 years ago as a management trainee. And he had a very strong mindset that he could just about get anything done, which was true. He could actually get literally anything done. And the CEO said, you got to coach him. I still remember the first time I met him, he was very unwilling. He said, look, I have everything sorted out. I'm doing so well. Why do I need coaching? If the CEO has told me you're next in line. So, but during conversations, slowly he realized that this whole strong mindset of I can get anything done was getting him to behave in a certain manner, especially with his peers. He saw that how the peers and everybody else in the organization is perceiving him or seeing him. He saw that they saw him as somebody whom you could just walk up to and give anything that is difficult or anything that's not getting done. And this guy will respond always in the same manner. Yeah, 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 I'll handle it. Don't worry. Give it to me. And then he saw that this kind of behavior is not something that's going to help him build relationships with his peers, which he so much wanted to actually to be able to become the CEO, the next CEO. And over the next few months, we worked out what those behaviors are, what needs to change, and how he's going to change it. So that was some phenomenal work that I managed to do, and I really feel blessed again to be able to bring that shift about. And one of the realizations I saw is that it's our core belief systems. And when we as coaches are able to help the coachee look at what are those beliefs or deep rooted patterns that are driving the thoughts and our actions and behaviors, when they are able to see that, then they are able to alter those beliefs. Sometimes these beliefs have served them for a very long time and hence have become very strongly reinforced. Sometimes they're just not visible at all. It's a struggle to be able to even see them. But that's the job of a coach. And when people are able to see those beliefs, Wow, it's a really insightful moment for them. And then they become open to, okay, how do I go about? How do I change this? What do I need to do so that I can move beyond and create new ones? Sometimes these beliefs are also deep-rooted anxieties, fears, and phobias. I remember one of my coaches was dealing with severe claustrophobia. She couldn't enter an elevator. She couldn't sit on the window seat of an aircraft. And this was worsening. Now, she didn't come to us with that objective in mind, but as a outcome, a side outcome of her undergoing coaching, she was able to overcome that claustrophobia, and she was comfortably now sitting in on the window seat of an aircraft. She entered a temple right till the end, filled with people, which was unimaginable for her. Now let's look at another case study. Change of role. I have been through that myself 3 times, from sales to back office and then to training. My God, I hated my boss for moving me into training. It was so difficult to figure out what to do, you know. And he was the guy who was on the verge of retirement, just 3 years to go, you know. And he's been in this role for many, many years of a sales support in the steel company. And suddenly he was told that now all sales support will merge with sales. Now, he really didn't have an issue with the new boss, thankfully, because he'd worked with him before and had a good rapport. But he saw this, as something of a punishment that the company was probably rolling out to him. He was very uncomfortable. He was like, I have done so much for this company in all these years. Why is this company doing this to me right at the verge of retirement? Why they just can't let me just be? And then he saw, we future paced with him, and then he saw that uh, probably another 2, 3 years would have just flown by in the same way that so many years have flown by. And he saw that nothing would have changed. And probably that wouldn't have been such a great outcome at the end of it all. Now that this opportunity has come in, and I have dealt with such challenges before in unique ways, in creative ways. I have been open and flexible in the past. Why not now? And when he saw this like an opportunity, the whole thing shifted for him. He suddenly became very excited, and he actually came up with some brilliant ideas that resulted in some 25% growth in revenue. So this was again very, very interesting for me. Moving on to the next case study I put together. Now, here's a diverse senior leader in a very big company, and he was one of the high pots identified for fast growth. But unfortunately, because of something not going right in her past, especially her personal relationships, also some professional relationships, that had a huge impact in terms of how she found herself behaving at the workplace. And she realized this. This is not how I want to be. There's too much frustration in me. There's so much of emotion in me, which ultimately was having an impact in terms of her promotion getting delayed, which further was causing a little bit of grief and frustration. What she saw for herself was simply phenomenal in the coaching that almost 6 months still continuing. She saw this innermost shift where the outside just didn't matter, and she could turn inwards and find her peace, her completion with her past, and also inner bliss. And that gave her a lot of confidence from within her. And this showed up in her shift in terms of her behavior at the workplace, which was noticed not just by her bosses, but also her team members and peers who commented, now we see this huge shift in you. You're able to listen to us so well. You're so much at ease and peace. And she was smiling, the smile came, the laughter came back, and she was really enjoying now her relationships, both at work as well as personally. Even I was fortunate to speak to her boss. Her boss commented that we never thought this could be possible, because apparently she'd also been coached by two or three coaches before she came to me. So this was again very fulfilling experience for me. The last case study I put together is a group coaching assignment where it was a team of about 8 members now, all of them stalwarts in their own right from top management schools of the world. The CEO was ex Stanford, I remember, the chief technology officer ex Yale. Very strong personalities, 12 to 15 years of experience. This new team set together almost about 15 months ago. The challenge, the group HR reached out and said, Kishore, can you get them to just talk to each other? And uh, this was so difficult that even the teams below them were just not talking to each other. So we began with a 2-day offsite, and during that offsite, we did group coaching, and again followed by some one-on-one coaching, where they discovered that all the stories they'd created in their head somehow were not true. And then again, this innermost shift, where they realized that they really wanted to connect to each other. Their eyes opened up to uh, the kind of quality of people, the talent that was around them. And suddenly there was this newfound respect. And suddenly then that resulted in some dialogue initially, some conversations. But within 3 months, I got to hear that some of them had, best friends amongst their peers, which was phenomenal. The shift, the massive movement was really phenomenal to notice. And then the teams also started to talk to each other. Saw that now the bosses were not entertaining anymore their complaints about how and why things were not going well. They were actually encouraging each other to talk to each other.
Hello, can we hear him? No, na? Authority? Authority?
Yeah, I think he got disconnected. Maybe he's just joined back. So we just have to wait for him. Yeah, so I think he's just joined back.
Am I back?
Yes, you are. You're very much audible.
Okay. So, did everybody get all the case studies, or did you lose me on the last one? When did you lose me? I'm not sure.
I think last it was a delight to watch everyone together. So you were just about to finish the last one. You can just
Yeah. So this group coaching assignment, where we were faced with this challenge of people not talking to each other, and then there was this almost 180-degree shift where they realized the kind of mistake they were doing, and they all got together. It was such a phenomenal experience to see them together, to talk to each other, working together. It was really moving. Yeah. So I'll pause here, and I'm open to any questions, anything you folks would like to ask me.
Can I ask?
Please type in your question so then we can all take the questions, right? Kishore, first of all, Karuna, just type your question if you have something.
Okay.
Kishore, these are like really amazing success stories. I think everyone who's hearing would agree with this, that each and every story that you have shared was really amazing. And, one, the one that I'm like most curious about is because you mentioned that 2 or 3 coaches had already coached her before you. And when she came to you, neither her nor her boss really thought that it was possible. So, what exactly did do you think you did different in this scenario?
That's a great question, Prosperity. When she came, I think there was very little trust. One of her friends prodded her, pushed her literally because she'd been my coachee.
Mhm.
And so she reluctantly agreed, okay, fair, let's try it out one more time. When I began, yes, I was also wondering, how do I go about? But then I just kept all my concerns aside, and I just went ahead with what I am supposed to do, right? The training that I have undergone with my gut feel, my understanding. I just listened. I think the one thing that really got the trust going was the relationship that got built because of my intense listening and connect with what she's really gone through in her life. And that wasn't easy what she went through. And I guess she wanted someone to just listen to her and understand her. And that is what she was missing all the time. And when she saw that connect happening, and the other thing which was important here was that I had no agenda, right? Maybe the previous coaches had some agenda, but I had not. I was just flowing with her on whatever she wanted. Sometimes she didn't want anything. She just wanted to share. And I would just go with that, you know. And that is how slowly, then when the trust got built, and then we started to work on some concrete outcomes on what she really wanted in her life.
Okay,
I
that's
hope that
very amazing.
answers the question.
Yes, it does answer that when you say that you didn't have an agenda and all that you had to do was just flow with her, it it really comes from the very fact that the agenda always has to be of the client. So when you put the client first and you take a backseat, that let the client, it's the client's time, it's the client's agenda that's there. So it then works forward. So yes, that's really beautiful. Um, of course, a lot of people are wondering what are the specific tools and techniques that you use, in any of the coaching sessions.
Yeah, so it's a combination actually of understanding of neurosciences, uh, NLP, some principles of quantum physics, as well as some other distinctions I've learned, understood through my past almost 10, 12 years of my journey in this area. And having understood all that, it's about how do we ask the right questions that stimulate the thinking of the coachee, so he or she is able to go within themselves deep down, find out where is this thought process coming from, why are they thinking or looking at things like this, is there any other way they can look at it differently, what is this uh, that whatever has happened in their life trying to teach them, and what learnings, lessons can they really pick from here to move on towards what they really want, what is that they really want. So this is a discovery process that happens. And like I said, there are many tools that we've learned here at Innermost Shift Coaching which are very, very helpful, so I would recommend that obviously to everybody.
course, using inner motion coaching tool or any other tool. But what I hear from you primarily is actually reframing the situation that the client is actually, living in their mind over and over again, and giving it a different meaning, and what are the learnings from it, how can you look from it differently. So that really created the shift, if I say so, right? uh, while we are talking about relooking at the situations, Radhakant has a question as to how have you broken the shackles of top management, and especially in the group coaching.
How have I broken the shackles?
Shackles of top management in group
Uh-huh.
coaching specifically.
Uh, See, the group coaching assignment, yeah, you're very right. When I first came across it, I remember the chief HRO saying, you know what, the chief content officer wants a bigger cabin than the CEO. He says content is king, and I run the show, so this is what I deserve.
Yeah.
and But you know what I've realized in my experience again, my inner knowing, what that tells me is that all of us human beings, we are we are all social beings. We want to be able to connect, we want to be able to talk to people, we want to be able to share, we want to be able to offer help, get help. That's somewhere within the core of us, but what stops us are all these barriers or all these stories we create in our head, that what does he think of himself, or what I think highly of myself. All these, we know, we've created them. And somewhere when you are able to draw the distinction of what do I truly want, don't I want to be with them, understand what the challenges they're facing and be able to help them, won't that actually make me bigger? So when confronted with all this in in an environment which we ensure is safe to open up, we create that comfort, that trust in that environment to be able to just say whatever's coming to your mind, and whatever you may not have liked in the past, whatever happened, and how do we move beyond that. All that, when we are able to do in this environment, then people just really open up. Then people are willing to just forgive, forget whatever unpleasantness has happened sometime in the past. Also, they're willing to move on. And that, when it comes about, when one person demonstrates that, then I think it's infectious. Then it spreads to the room. Then everybody just wants to move on and build that connect and bonding, which they so much want from within, deep within themselves. So once that starts to happen, then you see this amazing shift that really comes about.
Absolutely. I think when you started, answering this question, you said that the CTO wants a bigger office than the CEO, and it's all about the ego. And then somewhere in between, you also mentioned that helping others is also a bigger. So it's actually, on one side, it's the ego which is bigger. On the other side, it's really helping others, which is bigger. But at the end of the day, if people see something which is in them, which is much more than themselves, if you're able to bridge that gap, it really kind of,
If I would just add that great point, Prosperity, you brought about, the expanded consciousness in quantum physics,
yes.
being able to feel bigger than even your contribution through connectedness. So that when people start to experience in that room, it's amazing. It's phenomenal.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, while you're talking about this connectedness, and when you say when you can bring about this change, like Siri mentioned before, I'm again reminded of how humble and accepting of everything you were when you joined the training, and of course, with everything, if you are able to accept that, I think that also kind of makes a person very humble and accepting of everything that's happening around. Uh, so, what Indu wants to know is, what are the challenges you face with corporates, as in when you want to actually close a deal with a corporate? Okay, so what are the challenges that you face?
I think, see, it begins typically when you send your profiles, and then you call for an interaction, and typically the questions that we get asked is why you, and why how's your approach different, and what can you bring to the table which is so different? These are some questions that typically get asked. Be steady with them on, what are our unique strengths, and how is that translating into some specific results, and what is our specialization. Sometimes we are not able to do everything under the sun, and we should be very clear on what we need to be really focused on and where our strengths lies. I think that is important. um, the other challenge which I have personally faced uh, is that sometimes you will feel that things are just not moving, and although you've tried everything, and still people are not just opening up. What I've seen is sometimes you just have to just hold on and be there and continue and let things flow again, let things come up. And then slowly, things then start to fall in place. I think is that stand within you, is that confidence within the coach that no, it will happen. That is so important to have.
Okay. And Ria is also wondering as to how do you actually endorse yourself as someone fit for training to corporate people. So I would say training or coaching to corporate people. How do you actually endorse yourself for that? Because corporates do ask for a lot of validity before they take you in.
Yes. I think, see, for me personally, I think I had an unfair advantage because I was on the other side of the table. I was the global training leader for good 6 years. So I think that view I always had of what we really want. And so when I was on this side, then I was able to talk to them on, okay, how and where do we really fit in, and what are our credentials, and how we'll be able to deliver, because we've been there, done that, and we've now acquired all these tools, etc., to be able to really deliver. And we've worked at it. So we actually even the leadership development trainings that I put together, the content, etc., borrowed very heavily from what I had learned in my coaching. So how do I convert my coaching learning into questions which can be answered by a group, and how does that introspection and deep insight generation happen in a group? So when I was able to talk all this, I think that has really helped me build that credibility and trust of the corporates.
Okay. So what you're saying is that with your background of corporates, you already knew the kind of challenges that people in corporate face, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Uh, Here's another question, which is how to actually deal with peers who don't like you and also influence your team members. So like your peers are influencing your team members, but they don't really like you. So I know talking is one of the option, but it's a situation where members don't know that what their leaders know. So basically about how to deal with difficult peers.
Yes. And why sometimes in my experience people don't like us, and I've been on that side. So I can say that some of our unconscious behaviors, which we also are not aware of, trigger other people. So if we can overcome the resistance and actually are able to reach across and understand, if we are able to build that level of trust and bonding with the other person to be able to open up and understand on what is it that they didn't like about you, and many a times it's their thinking, and in fact, you may have nothing to do at all with why they don't like you. It's their patterns and their belief systems most of the time. But still, because you made that effort to be able to reach out and understand, it's mostly appreciated. In most cases, that really helps build that bond. And then the other person realizes somewhere that, yes, this is my thinking, my way of looking at things need not necessarily be about this person. Having said that, I think it's important that we make our efforts, we do our best. And then sometimes still you will not be able to win all the wars. Yeah. So you just have to let be and work with whatever you can really do.
Absolutely. So while you cannot win all the wars, I think in this situation it also like uh, in one of the cases you shared that with the high potential, the senior leader hired an outside help, because there was a problem. So that I think would also um, play a important role to bring the team together. And right now, so also I'm thinking like, how easy or difficult was it for you when you were on that side, in being in the corporate side, when you were in the in the situation of dealing with peers, you're not getting along. So how difficult was it at that point of time compared to now?
I think it was difficult. It wasn't easy at all. And like I said, now I understand on why companies would build a team with very diverse set of strengths, right? Uh, Now I understand, but at that time, being there, probably I thought, I was right, and this is how things have to be done, and this is the kind of approach we should have. Why does the other person not do it, etc. So it was very difficult actually to be able to appreciate that different human beings are different and they bring different strengths to the table, and all strengths are important and all approaches are important, and not just one approach is right or wrong, because we don't know ultimately what is the approach that will work. Sometimes we face failures. Not all approaches are successful, definitely not. So it was difficult. And at my time, I think I still remember that my boss was the first one in the organization who believed in coaching, who brought in coaches. I also experienced my first coach about 6 7 years ago, so which really helped me bring about a different perspective. And that also helped my peers also, because they also saw this differently. We also underwent a group coaching assignment, which was phenomenal. We all of us together could see perspectives which we'd never seen before.
That's really wonderful. So, the first case study that you shared, it says that I can get anything done mindset. That's was the mindset of one of the top leaders who was there, and that's a very good mindset to have. If you look at it, when say I can get anything done, that's a very good mindset, and people can really appreciate it. But that mindset itself became a hindrance and an ego for this person, right? So what and Ganesh asked this in general, but I'm making it a little more specific. What kind of probing questions do you actually ask a person to help them identify that they're coming from their ego? Whatever they're answering or whatever is their outlook, it's actually coming from a place of ego. So what kind of probing questions do you ask?
That's a very good question, yes. And mindsets and beliefs, some of them which have served us for a very long time, become so deeply, strongly ingrained in us. And we seem to be always operating from there. So it's very difficult to see them. It's like water to fish. So the fish doesn't know the water until unless it steps out and sees, yeah, there's
Absolutely.
water. Yeah, so it's really difficult. So I think the questions mostly are focused on uh, one, shifting perspectives, so to be able to show them, or make them see from their peer standpoint on what they might be thinking about you. You begin with, okay, what do you think about the peer? And then you switch roles. And that's a very powerful tool that I learned at Innermost Shift Coaching. So that perspective, when a person is able to get into the mindset of the other person and looking at oneself, then one is able to see very differently what he or she has probably never seen before. And that's where then they start to see, okay, this is not probably something I like in the behavior, and where is it coming from, and how did this really come about, and why would I want to do this, you know, and is there something else here that I need to see, is there something that I could do differently. All these questions then help probe and get to and then they are able to see that how and why this kind of behavior, where is it coming from,
Right.
then can I do something about it, and what do I really need to do, what is my vision, where do I need to go to, in that vision, in that future, does this belief system fit in, or do I need some change here. So that those are the kind of questions that really help me
Yeah.
get across. Yeah.
Yes, developing perspective is a very powerful tool to really help a person see the other side as well. So, no matter what tool and technique you use, it's very important that the client be coachable and coachable in the moment, right? So, how do you actually make sure that the client is coachable?
Yeah, and that's also sometimes very difficult. It was in this particular scenario because he believed that he didn't need coaching, whereas his boss was insisting, no, you must talk, at least talk.
Yes.
Kept saying, at least talk. So I remember I was just sitting and just listening, and then he kept saying, you know, everything's going great, everything's going well, and then coffee came in, and then one of the peers stepped in and he said, this is the challenge. Oh, you leave it with me, I'll handle it. And that's where I saw it for the first time. And then I thought, okay, he needs to be able to see this, because I saw that in I think about 40-45 minutes, I saw that happening 3-4 times, and I could see a pattern there. So when
Okay.
I saw that pattern happening, that's where I thought, you know, he needs to be able to see that. So um, and that's I think to get him to open, I think it was just the comfort that I gave him, that again, I have no agenda. If you need me, then I'm there for you. Otherwise, you know, it's all right. Yeah, I mean, you could be doing very well, and that's fine. So and that's where I think slowly started to just open up and chat and talk. And then we looked at, okay, what are some things he would want for himself really. So he said that he didn't want to wait anymore and move into the CEO's role. And then, okay, then I asked, okay, what do you think would be stopping you? Why do you think your CEO would have thought about getting me introduced to talk to you? So those questions then started the whole conversation. And then he saw the insights that he was able to get, which he found powerful and meaningful. And that's where the whole trust started to build.
Fair enough. So, right, like you said this earlier also, and again, I hear you say this, that just giving the time and being there for the person and knowing that the agenda is actually of the person really gave the person kind of the space to be themselves instead of just pointing out, look, this is your fault. So I think that really helps in a lot of corporate cases, because in 80% of the corporate cases, you're hired by somebody else and you're coaching somebody else. So creating that kind of a trust becomes very, very important. And, just looking at the fact that you have to build a lot of trust also before you actually start the coaching session, approximately how many sessions do you take? You know, the kind of time that it requires from the first meeting, I would say, to the outcome, at least, one or two initial outcomes that you want. And then, of course, it can keep moving on from there.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the outcome that we are out to get. Sometimes it's uh, 2 to 3 months minimum, and sometimes as long as 1 year plus. This one particular instance where the senior VP, where he had the strong belief system, the engagement lasted even after he was announced the CEO designate, because he saw so much value. He saw, no, I need so much change within myself that I would like to continue. So it really depends. Most of my coaching assignments get extended because they're seeing so much value that they would like to leverage me for more things. So yeah, but minimum 2 to 3 months.
Okay. Okay. So minimum 2 to 3 months is what each coaching assignment takes, right?
Yes.
And how easy or difficult it is to actually get business or to brand yourself in the corporate?
Uh, Look, honestly, I haven't thought of branding. Uh, I am just flowing with the kind of assignments that are coming in and through word of our mouth mostly, and being able to give my best to them, being able to serve to the fullest level. That's what I really focus on. And in the process, I think whatever brand name gets built, I suppose. I really don't know.
I think some wonderful case studies that you have shared with us, Kishore, and each one of them has very, very powerful outcomes. So a lot of people who are attending this also agree to this. Actually, just come from the heart. So I just leave it to Siri since we are already on time. So, just Siri, do you have something to say, or
Yes,
Kishore, if
go
you have
ahead.
something to
Yes, Kishore, if you have something to say.
I think it's been a great experience. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to be able to showcase one's work. I think it's really a dream come true. So thank you. Really overwhelming for me. Really, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kishore. I think it's been really wonderful. Of course, it's been your experience in the corporate world, where you have shared and you have done. So I think it's something which is very good for us. Of course, I don't come from a corporate, so I don't understand much of the things. I only understand things from a different perspective altogether, which is more of human. And I believe people who become coaches, whether in corporate or any other world, they operate from the heart. Otherwise, you can't be a coach. Otherwise, you can probably not even a counselor or a trainer, I would say, but yes, in some other way, some other management part of it. Um, so I think it's been a wonderful takeaway learning from you, and I hope everybody has also learned. I've had few experiences with few people where I've worked with coach as a coach in some corporate, and I think it's really something which is very important, that which Prosperity also mentioned. You're hired by somebody else, and then in some organizations you are being taken because you have to actually in a straightaway word, you have to kind of shoot the person who's not the right kind of guy in the organization, and you have to coach everybody else. So at times it becomes difficult, but I think that is what is a job of a coach. Probably when you are really taking care of the people all around. So one such instance we had when we were we did coaching with one of the persons, and I don't know if I shared earlier or not, that we were hired for this particular person. And so in the first round, I coached him, and then he says, "No, I think I would like to be coached by Sat." I said, "That's fine, perfectly all right." So then he coached him, and then in the end we found that it's not happening, but we knew that we've been appointed for this particular person. So we said, then what to do? And then of course you're asking open-ended questions, you're talking to them, you're doing a lot to them. So suddenly we said, you have to change gears. That was our experience. So that's what I wanted to share. And what we did was that it's okay. We said, okay. He said, it's not about me, it's about the management. I know everything. And he's a very techno commercial guy and very well read and very authentic. So company didn't want to lose him. So we said, okay, let's start from something else. So what do you think? Where do you need? Where are you really good at, and where do you think could be a place where you're not good or you want to be good at it? So he explored and explored, and ultimately he says, okay, it's about my family. So of course, then he started with that, and then he had a young daughter and some issues. So we started from that, and when he could find a shift in himself, he realized that he has been too rigid in things in the office as well. So we never, of course, coach never points out, but that was a great learning for us also. That sometimes when you're coaching people and they're too hardened, it's very different. You need to change your perspective and start talking to them maybe from a little different perspective. So that is one thing which was our learning in one of the cases, and though of course many people have come across. So people who have been coached are always somehow been ready, or so that's what is my experience. Not too much into the corporate, but yes, thanks Kishore. I think that was a very very good learning. And if you have many more cases, and if you have something more, do let us know. We will see if we can, do something more from the corporate perspective. And so I think that is it for now. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
And thank
you.
you, Prosperity. She's been always a wonderful host, and comparing, and really like her the way she does it.
I know.
And so we see you next Friday, all of you,
Thank you.
right? Join in, wait for the mail. If you don't receive the mail, just you have the numbers or you have the earlier mail, write it on that one that you haven't got the link. We will send you the link again. Thank you so much, Kishore, once again. Bye.
Thank you, Siri. Thanks a lot once again for the opportunity. Prosperity, you've been phenomenal. The way you've called out some of those questions, really interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Thanks, Kishore.
Thank
Thank you, Kishore. Thank you,
Thank
Siri. Bye.
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 Bye bye.
Bye, everyone. Great time.